is something isn't esoteric just because if it's cheaper, but if the make is better. And it's Lord of the Rings, Legolas was like, there's blood that was spilt last night because the sun rose red. But I guess like he can have a keen sensory because he's an elf and can walk on top of snow, as like the men walked on snow and they fell through. This keen sensibility is like, well, for me it was so dark last night, and the very next day it's bright AF. Partially because there's snow everywhere, but more coming to you in such drastic measure, then you're probably ridiculous crazy. Hashtag LOL. Curbside, it's a great place because no one can get mad at you. On the corner of a curbside, it's twice as controversial because you have traffic on your right and the businesses on your either side, so your corner is that much more unique if you find a corner of a sidewalk. That was my intro. Great icebreaker, dude. Hashtag not. Alright, so if you can go into a jeweler and do something like a basic clip. A basic clip is like a clothespin, but on an MP3 player, you know, like a thumb drive or something, it has like a clothespin clip, an alligator clip, excuse me. And you ask a jeweler to fix it, if they're at all like offended, like this is, you know, so simplistic, you're an idiot, get out of here. Paying them a certain amount. If they want a quarter for it, it would be so ironic because that's what a gumball would cost in lobbies of stores. Candy machines. So if you can do this exchange, you know how fantastic. That's ridiculous. And here's the crazy part. That can be a physical denotation of how, you know, DARPA, they created the internet and now they feel as though they have such strong standing because of the establishment of all the big tech that has the strongholds on the internet. Google, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You know, are these going to be things that are standing because they're creating cloud computing, AI, quantum computers? They have all the money in the world because everyone only goes there. Scenario of change of differences. It's blatantly obvious that the CDC would be recording people who go to hospitals to see who has not been taken their products. And this is with the sound clip, so that tidbit is horrific because they're not looking into quantum mechanics to solve the problems of, let's say, a tiny bug jumping around, having all of its liquid around cooling with each jump it takes up and down. Something as silly as that idea is what's necessary and what they're not doing. So let's talk about this silly bug jumping up and down. If it was like plankton and its limbs had little like dots on it, like, oh, I don't know, a tree branch that has little dots on its tiny branches. It's that versus me jumping up and down. In Star Wars, you would get like an extra hop in their video games. Imagine doing a flip with an extra hop, but just landing on the ground. When you're coming down onto the ground, hovering it over a little bit. In my dreams, I could hover, and so like in my dream when I saw this girl hovering that I knew, I had to explain to her like, this is what I was doing in mine. And so me versus, you know, how it would hurt jumping up a large amount of feet versus a little bug jumping up and down and drying each way when it's coming up and down. I say drying, I say halo blood, I say blood rain. All these things are denotations of larger stuff that isn't quite depicted yet. And in not being quite depicted yet is things not to be taken for granted, but slowly but surely understanding what exactly I'm putting my aimer over. So this bug drying out each time it jumps up and down, you've got to notice what's it versus me jumping up and down. If I was jumping so high up into the air and maybe doing one flip. This is what CDC is not doing. They're going after making enemies out of people who have not taken their products, which is super dangerous marketability. A new internet, something that's even lower frequency and has better bandwidth. So I've noticed the internet's been sucking lately, and it should be getting better in time. So putting two and two together, or put two and two together, the people on the Titanic, they're like, we'll wait for them when they come back and we'll be ready. Because this was the underclass. Creating a permanent underclass. Not if you can invent something with what I just said. It'll allow an upwards mobility. Something for the common man. Commonplace in layman's term. That's what grassroots is all about. Stay tuned for a night scene. Jumping excess of 10 to 20 feet in the air, doing flips, having, if you're a bug, little dots on your legs. The list goes on. All these things are not a reality currently, but if it's getting looked at as though if it were, could be beneficial to at least getting a grasp on what a quantum nature has to do with the small, the big, the stuff you can't see, the wheels that keep on turning. You know, if you have a large wheel that keeps on turning, it's like that song, big wheels keep on turning. Current to date is where all you put your money is. If you're keeping it in a mesh lining in your backpack, and that mesh lining everyone can see because it's not zipped up, guilty. Well, that's a place where, you know, it's not as safe, but at least it's zipped up. There's a literal secure line of floodgating where it's like, someone says they have holes in their teeth, we think it's like a bullet hole, because that's what you see in like a cartoon or something. So, it's all of reality. Linguistics is, you know, not a make or break, but it's definitely a tool that... So, it's all of reality. Linguistics is, you know, not a make or break, but it's definitely a tool that shouldn't be shunned. Definitely not by anyone speaking freely on a curb. In college, I took a course, these core classes, you know, you take these as first, and it separates the boys from men. One of these classes I took were death and dying. I know, right? Why would you do that? But the importance of coroners, autopsy reports, embalmers. These are things that are less, I wouldn't say less professional, but let's be honest here. Less held at a high standard from a doctoral degree. What does that even mean? Well, if you're a doctor, you're more than likely accumulated with your paycheck through a hospital. And these hospital CEOs don't allow people talking hand milk drinks that are coffee. Why don't they need to get refrigerated? Their shelf life is extraordinary. Is that just because they aren't cracked yet? What's more behind this? If it's not part of what gives them a paycheck. Talking about what? What does this even incur as? Embalmers, 7 out of 10 of them reporting that they see blood abnormally, having this flesh-like tissue elastic in it. How off-putting. But what would that mean to not go over the head of everyone once I start talking about it? If it has blackmail up one end and down the other, it can't be in one ear and out the other. what I think is extravagant. The amount of chaotic dystrophy is like an open symbolism. What would that mean? If your heart stops beating, you know, you lost your heart, does that mean that you don't have one? Yes. And it's with this is the utmost certainty of why things are important